County police sound the alarm on the youth crime crisis.
Some of these youngsters are laughing at our officers.
The problems they want fixed. Plus, no concrete solution with state lawmakers on how to tackle the problem. We look at the rift between leaders and those demanding change. Dismal state test scores in Baltimore City schools.
The Baltimore school system is failing our children.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore uncovers testing data you won't see anywhere else and breaks down what it all means. Delayed buses and a change to school times sparks outrage from parents. The decision that has board members and the superintendent at odds. Then complications in spying allegations against the Harford County executive.
I, as your state's attorney, want to state publicly that I will not be bullied or retaliated against.
Why the state's attorney is accusing him of retaliation.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Two teenagers are in custody after shots are fired this afternoon at Dunbar High School in Baltimore. Police say gunfire hit the window of the cafeteria. No one was hurt.
We know it happened after dismissal at around 4 p.m. It is the second shooting at Dunbar in the past few weeks. A 12-year-old was shot at a football game earlier this month. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Now, that shooting comes on the heels of a violent weekend involving teens in Baltimore. Of the 7 people shot since Friday, 5 are juveniles.
Fox 45 News has been covering the juvenile crime problem for months as parents, police, and prosecutors across the state call for change. Tonight, there is a storm brewing between those groups and lawmakers, who some feel have been slow to take up discussion on juvenile justice laws. Now, prosecutors across the state say the juvenile crime laws prevent them from going after young offenders. We'll hear more from them in just a moment. Parents tell Fox 45 News they're afraid for their children's lives, including one mother who says her daughter has seen both sides of the crime crisis. She says the juvenile justice system has failed her family. Law enforcement has also come forward. In January, the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office shared more than 7 pages worth of crimes they say children committed but were too young to be prosecuted.
Tonight, the conversation is intensifying in Baltimore County. From shootings to car thefts, some council members say juveniles are taking advantage of the laws that are in place.
Some of these youngsters are laughing at our officers, saying they know we can't do anything to them.
And tonight, we have team coverage as Mackenzie Frost looks into a potential divide between lawmakers and the people they represent.
But we begin with Jeff Abel and the renewed urgency surrounding juvenile crime in Baltimore County. Jeff?
Well, state lawmakers may call it a minor crime, but county police say it has major implications. And tonight they're describing the frustration of sending 4th and 5th graders who are repeated thieves right back home.
I'm mad because I feel like we're not getting nowhere.
Tina Jinko is still struggling to recover from the late-night thieves who shattered her car window, cracked her car's ignition, and fled before they could steal the car. Jinko was left with a broken car and the frustration of paying to repair it.
I personally thought I would at least have it within a week or 2. I really did. I never dreamt we'd be now going on a month and a half.
It was one of 7 cars vandalized or stolen in her Essex neighborhood that night.
Some people are having their car stolen multiple times.
At a county council hearing tonight,
Hi, Chief. Thanks for coming today.
the police chief alerted council members of the soaring statistics. Car thefts up 175% this year compared to the same time period last year.
One lady got a loaner car, same brand, and then it was stolen.
While the number of thefts are soaring, so are the number of arrests. Adults arrested in Baltimore County for stealing cars is up 15% from this time last year. The number of juveniles arrested for stealing cars is up 508%. But for police, what's perhaps most frustrating is the new juvenile reform laws that don't allow police to charge any thief under the age of 13.
They are choosing the kid under age 13 to be the driver. So we have 11-year-olds with no license, no training, driving these stolen cars at high speeds.
I mean, I'm sort of like blown away by this trend here.
Kids get out of the car, and the minute you stop them and you pull them aside, the first thing they say to you is, "Are you going to call my mother?" Because they know they're not. They know they're underage, and they know they can't get in trouble.
We don't want a child to be their entire lives to be ruined over one mistake when they're so young and still deciding on what they want to do with the rest of their life.
But for Tina Jinko, there's no excusing young thieves who act very much like adults.
If it's one of your kids that did this stuff, then you need to lend me your car, and then you figure out how to get back and forth to work.
County police say they've already distributed some 800 steering wheel locks and are now working with car dealerships to distribute even more. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Nearly a dozen top prosecutors across Maryland are calling for change to the juvenile justice system. Those prosecutors represent 4.5 million people, nearly 80% of Maryland's population.
If we don't do something to hold these young people accountable, they will continue to run and almost have lawlessness in our cities. And we can't have that.
To our young people, you are not outsmarting the police. You are not outmaneuvering prosecutors. You will not scare your peers into silence.
But some state leaders don't appear to be on the same page as Ms. Braveboy. Last week, lawmakers held a hearing to address juvenile justice laws, but left without any concrete solutions. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage.
Governor Wes Moore describes Vincent Schiraldi as a reformer. Some of Schiraldi's policy views sparked questions from lawmakers during his confirmation process. And now, as the pressure continues to build from prosecutors and police to make some changes, those views are back in the spotlight. In Baltimore City, the juvenile crime crisis continues to grip the community. 5 teens shot this weekend. 96 young people have been shot in Baltimore this year, 13 killed. In Prince George's County, the juvenile bloodshed continues as well.
We are seeing young people who are not only victimizing their own community members, but who are victimizing and killing each other.
A young girl shot and killed outside of her high school trying to break up a fight.
People deserve to live in places that are safe, and our kids deserve not to die.
The calls for change on the heels of a House hearing where the Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi touts a drop in juvenile crime.
As juvenile incarceration has declined, so has juvenile crime.
But that data called into question by a bipartisan group of lawmakers, instead pointing to the juvenile justice reform laws as a possible reason for the drop in juvenile crime complaints.
I'm not sure it's because there has been a drop in juvenile crime. I think the numbers have simply dropped because in many cases, police officers have not brought charges.
It is not necessarily the case that juvenile crime is decreasing with your numbers if so many actual cases of juvenile crime never reach your department.
And now law enforcement leaders argue policymakers are not listening to the people on the front lines of this growing crisis.
Some people may have this idea to tell us that we actually do not see what we see.
But Secretary Schiraldi reiterates his view that young kids don't belong in the criminal justice system for several crimes.
They start to sort of think of themselves as little 12-year-old thugs, and they self-identify in ways that we really don't want them to. If they're under 13, we can provide them with services informally.
That view is consistent with his previous policy stances. During his confirmation process this year, this Washington Post op-ed, co-written by Schiraldi nearly a decade ago, brought up by some lawmakers, calling into question putting anyone 21 and younger, even the possibility of someone up to 25 in the adult criminal justice system for crimes committed. During his first on-camera interview in May, Schiraldi didn't see his view as an issue. As a secretary for an agency plagued with problems, do you see their concerns?
Many agencies are plagued with problems. If you ask most of your viewers, how different were you, particularly the men, at the age of 17 versus the age of 19? Were you dramatically more ready to engage in adult responsibility and adult behaviors when you were a freshman or a sophomore in college than you were when you were a senior in high school? I think most people would say no.
In speaking at a Harvard panel promoting his new book about parole and probation, Schiraldi says supervision doesn't always make communities safer.
We concluded that if probation and parole are not improving public safety, are associated with higher incarceration rates and are accompanied by negative outcomes, it's logical to ask not only why so many people are under supervision, but also why is it used at all?
Governor Wes Moore says he handpicked Schiraldi for his ability to lead an agency that he says isn't working.
We needed to get a reformer, a person with a history of reforming systems inside of that seat.
But right now, reformation is where prosecutors...
The statements of the secretary about the falling numbers in terms of juvenile crime that's not what we've seen here in Montgomery County.
This legislation has put our children at risk, our communities at risk, and the entire state at risk of extreme chronic violence.
And the time is now. They're really looking at these issues.
And police are pushing back on the impacts on crime in communities across Maryland.
What we have in these laws, whether they are reformation laws or otherwise, what we have is the inability to see that there's a solutions from all sides. Community members have expressed to us that they will not accept this. So who are we speaking for?
Governor Moore continues to call for change when it comes to the juvenile justice laws, but so far refuses to say what specifically he's looking for from lawmakers. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Schiraldi says juvenile crime is down across the state, but others are questioning his numbers. Fox 45 News spoke to sheriffs across Maryland who say they're seeing the impact of juvenile crime each and every day.
What's the data? Where are they pulling the numbers from to see this? Because in our communities, and this is not just mine, but across the state, we're seeing the communities are pretty upset about the rise in juvenile issues.
You know, I've been out on patrol many a times, and I've gotten the same reaction from juveniles over and over again, which is, well, I'm a juvenile, you can't do anything.
Well, some lifelong Baltimore residents are pointing the finger at lawmakers when it comes to holding juveniles accountable. Pastor P.M. Smith has spent time working with Baltimore's youth. He believes the governor and other lawmakers are to blame.
Total culpability is on the legislature because they could do something. They have the authority. They just won't. Our governor could call a special session. He has authority. He just won't. There will be no accountability. I don't care how much the mayor talks about it. I don't care how much Mr. Moore talks about it. I don't care how much the legislators talk about it, Mr. Ferguson or Ms. Jones, until you exercise the authority that you have to curb that behavior. Maybe not change it, but curb it. So there's blood on their hands, whether it's the young person dying or the young person injuring and killing somebody else.
Well, following last week's juvenile justice hearing, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pressed House Speaker Adrian Jones on how the General Assembly is going to move forward.
Do you believe that kids using guns in crimes is a problem that the House will address in January?
The Judiciary Committee will be dealing.
As Speaker, though, do you think that it's something that will be a priority?
The Judiciary Committee and all our committees, all their priorities.
Is it a priority for you? As a lawmaker here in Baltimore County, we saw kids using guns in Lansdowne. We've had issues with DJS.
Yes, obviously, yes. But I gotta go.
When will we see legislation to address that?
Well, we don't do session until January.
Should that change?
Excuse me?
Should that change?
Should what change?
Should there be a special session to address the juvenile crime crisis right now?
This is something I will be discussing with my chairs. I don't want to be in the media and saying, oh, Speaker didn't talk to us. We're going to be having meetings, so when that happens, you'll know.
Well, Fox 45 News also questioned House Speaker Jones in Towson this weekend. She says while new legislation is under consideration, she doesn't feel there's a need to act now.
I'll be dealing with that when I talk with my judiciary chairman and also, all the other chairmen in terms of what we're going to be dealing with for the 24 session. We got plenty of time for that. There's no rush for that. I'd rather get it right and then just trying to estimate and tell you something. But no, I believe in doing things in decency and in order. I'm going to stand with that.
House Speaker Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you would like to talk with them about juvenile justice laws, we have their phone numbers and email addresses on your screen. To reach Speaker Jones, you can call 410-841-3800. For Senate President Ferguson, call 410-841-3600.
And if you'd like to connect with more of your elected leaders, our website makes it easy. Go to foxbaltimore.com, click on the menu at the top left of your screen, and then select Lawmakers. From there, you can enter your home address to find the officials who represent you at the local, state, and federal levels.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust the state legislature to pass laws that protect your safety? So far, 90% of those who voted say no. You can make your voice heard by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
And another juvenile justice hearing is scheduled for November. Fox 45 News will continue to demand accountability from lawmakers regarding juvenile crime. Our extensive reporting on the issue available right now at foxbaltimore.com.
The next city council hearing on the Brooklyn Day mass shooting is set for September 27th at 10 in the morning. Council members are looking into how Baltimore Police, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and the Housing Authority responded to the shooting. Last week's hearing ended early after emotional testimony from the mother of one of the victims, who says police should have been there to protect her daughter and others.
This did not have to happen. This didn't have to happen if there were 1 or 2 or 3 patrol cars out there. I'm sorry, guys. As I said, this is my life.
Well, the Brooklyn Day shooting response is expected to be a topic of discussion during Acting Commissioner Richard Worley's confirmation hearing this Thursday at 5 p.m.
In Harford County, State's Attorney Allison Healy is weighing in on the espionage claims against County Executive Bob Casserly. She says Casserly hasn't been cooperating in the investigation.
I, as your state's attorney, want to state publicly that I will not be bullied or retaliated against.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has much more on Healy's comments and the response from Casserly ahead at 10:30.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a school bus stalemate between the Howard County Superintendent and board members. Why they aren't on the same page regarding updated school start times. Newly obtained documents reveal more state test struggles in Baltimore City. More than a dozen schools have 0 students testing proficient in math. And that's not the only number catching our Project Baltimore team's attention.
A gorgeous stretch of weather coming our way, including for tomorrow, but some tropical troubles could be getting here towards this weekend. I'm going to be letting you know when it's going to be wettest and what else we could see. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
And it's a Baltimore celebration 7 years in the making. The Baltimore Orioles punched their ticket to the postseason for the first time since 2016. But the team's stars had their sights on a much bigger prize. The latest round of state test results raises alarm in Baltimore City, and we're getting a detailed look into how bad it is.
Project Baltimore's Chris Papps found 40% of city high schools where the state exam was given did not have a single student score proficient in math.
Jason Rodriguez,
this is educational homicide,
is with people empowered by the struggle.
There is no excuse.
In 2021,
enough is enough.
The Baltimore-based nonprofit held rallies calling on Baltimore City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises to resign over low test scores, falling graduation rates, and a lack of transparency. Now, after seeing what Project Baltimore just discovered, Rodriguez is renewing those calls.
We have a system that's just running rogue, and it starts at the top.
Rodriguez is reacting to these new 2023 state test scores, which have not yet been released to the public. FOX45 obtained them through a source in Baltimore City schools. The unredacted state test results at every school in the city. And what we found is hard to believe. Students took the test in the spring of 2023. Just a few months ago, we found 13 city high schools where not one student who took the state math test scored proficient. Not one student. These are the 13 schools, which include some of the city's most well-known high schools like Patterson, Frederick Douglass, and Reginald F. Lewis. In total, students at 33 high schools took the state math exam last spring. In our analysis, we are not including Eager Street Academy because it's located inside the Baltimore City Detention Center. Of the 32 high schools remaining, if 13 had 0 students test proficient, that means 40% of all Baltimore City high schools could not produce a single student who's doing math at grade level. But that's not the only alarming finding we made. In these 13 high schools, more than 1,700 students took the test, and nearly 1,300, or 74.5%, scored a 1 out of 4, the lowest level, meaning those students are not even close to being proficient. And keep in mind, last school year, Baltimore City Schools received $1.6 billion from taxpayers, the most ever. The district also received an additional $799 million from the federal government in COVID relief funding. Yet still, not a single student at 13 city high schools tested proficient in math.
So it's not a funding issue. We're getting plenty of funding. I don't think money is the issue. I think accountability is the issue.
6 years ago, in 2017, Project Baltimore produced a similar report where we analyzed state test scores and found 13 city schools had 0 students proficient in math. And many of the schools from 2017 are also on the 2023 list, including Achievement Academy, Coppin Academy, Frederick Douglass, New Era, Patterson, and the Reach.
We're still dealing with these same issues year after year. It's just scary to me and alarming to me because we know that what's happening now, it's just opening up the floodgates to the school to prison pipeline.
City schools will not do an interview to discuss these results. Instead, we received a statement which states, "We acknowledge that some of our high school students continue to experience challenges in math following the pandemic." The statement also said recent increases in funding have increased student achievement. The district says in 7 of 8 grade levels, math proficiencies increased in 2023 compared to 2022.
I'm beyond angry. This is why we've been calling for the resignation of the school CEO.
It's important to note we're only able to report these test scores to the public because a source gave them to us. When the state officially releases them later this month, the results will be heavily redacted, making it more difficult for parents to see how poorly many schools are performing. Earlier this year, the state began further redacting state test scores after Project Baltimore reported on last year's poor outcomes. With State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry no longer seeking a second term, we asked the school board if it plans to reverse course and make more information concerning test scores available to the public. We were told the board has no comment. But when we were looking at the test scores we do have, we made another stunning discovery. Coming up on Wednesday on Fox 45 News, we'll tell you what we learned about the top 5 performing high schools in the city. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Baltimore City Councilman Zeke Cohen taking steps to curb car thefts, what he's calling for and how it could be part of his political aspirations.
And one of those days for tomorrow where you may need a jacket in the morning, but by the afternoon, oh, you are going to love it. Here's what you're going to need. Again, the morning light jacket. And, if the kids have their light jackets as well, you may want to make sure that you write the name in the back on the tag because they may take it off at school and you don't know where it's going to be later. Sunglasses, short sleeves as well. I've got an update on the tropics. Could impact us here this weekend. My Weather Authority forecast.
And as we go to break, we're taking a live look at the Inner Harbors. We see a beautiful night out there. We'll be right back.
Taking a look right now at the Fox box. On the top left, a man has been arrested and charged with murder after police say he shot and killed a Los Angeles sheriff's deputy who was sitting in his police car. Officials say that suspect barricaded himself for several hours before he surrendered.
Top right, 9 teenagers who escaped a juvenile detention center in Pennsylvania are now back in custody. Police say the teens ambushed 2 employees taking their keys and escaping through a side door. They were captured after about 12 hours.
On the bottom left, a pile of wood and some smoke is all that's left after a house explosion this afternoon in Pennsylvania. Police say 1 person is dead, sadly, but it's unclear what caused that explosion.
And bottom right, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is changing the dress code on Capitol Hill, meaning lawmakers no longer have to wear a suit and tie to appear on the Senate floor for the men. Opponents of the decision say Schumer is pandering to Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, who regularly wears shorts and a hoodie around the Capitol.
It won't benefit the whole Howard County population.
Growing frustration in Howard County over school start times and bus delays. The decision from the superintendent that flies in the face of the school board and parents.
Allegations of spying in Harford County now reaching the state's attorney's office. They heated back and forth as the county's top prosecutor says the executive is retaliating against her.
Fox 45 is following three big stories at 10:30. A spike in car thefts across Baltimore is the topic of conversation at tonight's city council meeting. Why some say the council member who brought it up could have another motive.
A spying controversy continues in Harford County. Why the state's attorney says County Executive Bob Casserly is interfering with her investigation.
And transportation troubles reach a tipping point in Howard County as frustrated residents and board members sound off at tonight's meeting.
I've heard my colleagues say today that they're disappointed, and I think that's the understatement of the century.
Well, the plan was introduced by the superintendent as a solution to the system's ongoing bus struggles.
But Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports many fear that option will only create more bumps in the road.
Parents, teachers, students, and now the school board all voicing concerns and frustrations over the shift to school start times. But tonight, Superintendent Dr. Michael Martinato not shifting his stance on the issue.
A solution couldn't wait, and it needed to be developed, assessed, and implemented as quickly as possible.
After a bumpy start to the school year, students and parents across Howard County now bracing for school start times to change again.
They can't get her there at 8 a.m. How are they going to get her there at 7:50 in the morning?
To improve students' sleep schedules this year, later start times and a 3-tiered system was implemented. But what followed was a bus service breakdown. New traffic patterns resulting in daily delays. Last Monday, just 76% of Tier 3 students making it to school on time, and only 25% on time for drop-off.
The consistent feedback we're receiving from our bus drivers, and they're begging us, is to give them more time between those routes.
According to Superintendent Dr. Michael Martirano, that can be managed by shifting some start times 10 minutes earlier and others a few minutes later. Martirano estimating after those changes are made, 96% of morning buses will arrive on time, a stat that dips to just 67% in the afternoon.
Even that percentage is not great.
A second shift to start times drawing harsh criticism from the entire Howard County School Board.
I am disappointed in this. I'm mad. I'm agitated. I'm frustrated.
Including the student representative.
I received an outpouring of so much frustration from students, and I think it's totally understandable.
Many of whom argue changing the start times won't change the issues brought on by a new bus contractor. Zoom Transportation, a California-based bus company, down dozens of drivers, even forced to bring in temporary staff from out of state.
I don't want to do this again in 2 months.
An argument echoed by parents and the teachers union.
I'm concerned because I think the issue is bigger than just time.
I worry that she'll just be even later to school.
But Martirano remaining confident the changes will drive results.
As of now, those new start times are expected to take effect this Wednesday. In Howard County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, Harford County State's Attorney Allison Healy weighing in on the spying controversy surrounding County Executive Bob Castle. Healy says Castle retaliated against her for just doing her job. Castle calls her comments nonsense. Fox 45's Amy Simpson has more on the back and forth.
This ties back to those allegations that the county executive was spying on a county councilman earlier this year. County Executive Bob Castle has since told me his office did view emails, but as part of an internal investigation after being accused of misusing county money. But when those allegations of spying and illegal wiretapping first surfaced, Harford County State's Attorney Allison Healy says she referred the issue to the state prosecutor, saying she felt it needed an independent, unbiased investigation.
Good morning. I want to thank you all for coming.
Today, a new wrinkle in the Harford County privacy debate.
I attempted to resolve the issue professionally, but I have been ignored.
Harford County State's Attorney Allison Healy says a critical member of her staff is out on extended emergency leave.
With the approval of the Harford County Department of Human Resources.
But information and communications now trapped in that staff email account, Healy says are critical to the inner workings of the state's attorney's office.
These emails include invoices, contracts, personnel actions, and state and federal grant correspondence that simply cannot be ignored for any period of time.
Today, Healy going public, saying when her office requested access to that email account, which is held on Harford County servers, County Executive Bob Castle's administration said no.
Is refusing to provide access to this important information to which I am entitled in retaliation for my referral of a recent investigation into their conduct.
Healy accuses the Castle administration of holding her office's data hostage. The state's attorney now wants an independent data server, also planning to take Castle to court, looking for a judge to order the information to be released.
Ms. Healy asked my office and me to provide her with emails owned by someone else on the county server. Folks, that's exactly the conduct for which she referred me and my office to the Office of State Prosecutor. It's the same conduct.
Castle showing up at this morning's press conference in Bel Air, addressing the cameras himself, claiming this very public political infighting has deeper ties to issues playing out in Harford County's Republican base.
They're pissed off, and that's why they're coming after me right now. This is political theatrics. This is a political hit job.
Castle not denying withholding the information from the state's attorney's office, but rebukes those claims of retaliation.
That's absurd. No retribution, no retaliation. What's absurd is that she turns to me and says, hey, what I just have asked you to be indicted for, the same conduct, I want you to now do it because it would benefit me. I'm like, what are you kidding me? This is Keystone Cops?
Meanwhile, Councilman Aaron Penman, who originally levied that charge of spying against the county executive, now calling on Castle to step down.
I think he needs to take a leave of absence.
The Office of the Maryland State Prosecutor does not confirm the existence of any investigations, but in a press release today, Councilman Aaron Penman claims recent evidence of a grand jury subpoena indicates there's more going on behind the scenes. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Turning to a city in crisis as car theft show no signs of slowing down. More than 7,700 cars have been stolen this year. That comes out to about 29 cars stolen a day.
That is a more than 200% increase compared to this time last year. Yet only about 3% of reported thefts have ended in an arrest. Councilman Zeke Cohen cited those numbers when he called for a hearing into the growing problem today.
When a percentage is that high, it cannot just be a statistic, it must be a call to action.
It is also a reason that some residents have chosen to leave our city.
Well, the councilman also points out one car theft in his district that ended in a deadly shooting last month. Since that time, hundreds more of cars have been stolen. Fox 45 News has been pressing police, the state, and city leaders for answers for months. And now we're asking Councilman Cohen, why not sooner?
And do you feel that you and other lawmakers should have done something sooner?
I think that we're all working together to solve this crisis, and it is a huge issue, not just, again, in Baltimore, but in so many of these jurisdictions. And I think it takes an approach where everybody is at the table.
How fast do you think you can get everyone to the table?
I don't want to put a timeline on it. I got to work on that with the chairman as well as the council president, but I would say as quick as possible.
Meanwhile, residents that we've heard from say they can't afford to wait.
We are taxpayers and got to live on the edge every day. And it's sad. It's sad. I came to Baltimore for a reason, and now I'm leaving for a reason.
Well, it is not clear when that hearing will take place. It is important to note Councilman Cohen is running for City Council President. Fox 45 News spoke with political analyst John Deedy, who says this resolution might have more to do with politics than public safety, especially because his only opponent right now is incumbent Nick Mosby. He says Mosby's wife, former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, and her reputation could be playing a role here.
And the name Mosby, when you think of crime, is associated with lenient crime policies. So to say that you're going to be a little bit tougher is a good, offset from what your opponent is. And I think that this is a smart move for him to take a stronger stand on an issue like this, because there's a lot of votes he needs to get out of the city in order to win the primary.
Well, if you have a car stolen story or know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to